Hello, and welcome to a Sunny Book Nook. My name is Sunny. I use they, them pronouns, and I have a heart-inspired look today. The heart-inspired look and theme of this video also makes sense because I will be bringing to you today a list of underrated books that I heart, that I love, that I really enjoy. These are all 5-star reads, 4.5-star reads for me that I feel like not enough people talk about on YouTube or anywhere, really, you know? So let's just get into the list. I have 5 books, five-star books, and they range in genre, as you will see. So the first book I want to talk about is Firebreak by Nicole Corner Stacy. This book is a sci-fi fantasy dystopian type of book that is very much video game-esque. It is set in a future America in which 2 corporations are battling it out for territory and people and land and power. This plays out in the corporate wars, and due to the many decades of fighting for the corporate war, there are a lot of war orphans, and we are following our main character who is a war orphan, living in an apartment or like a hotel that's been repurposed into the living space because basically it's sort of post-apocalyptic. People are just living wherever they can, but the government basically, or corporations who basically function as a government, ration out their electricity supply. There's a curfew every night on electricity and also being able to go out. There's water rations, food rations, and we're following our main character who essentially is in the gig economy, as is everyone at this point, and she like walks dogs, and she is a video game streamer with her best friend. So she and her best friend are young women who are also the same generation of war orphans, and they all live with a bunch of other people, roommates, in like a tiny space, and they make money off of video game streaming because in this world there's also a video game that sort of replicates the corporate war that's going on, because obviously the corporations, like they own the water, like they own everything else, they also own and operate these games. They also own and operate these celebrities, superstar, K-pop idol-esque, like Pokemon card type heroes who are these super soldiers who fight on the front lines of the war. Those people have their own avatars within the video game world. And so in the video game world, in order to try to make money on the side and, fight people in this virtual reality game, our main character and her best friend get sort of roped into or bribed into trying to get really close to one of the super soldiers. And the super soldiers all have numbers as names, like 44 or like 8 or whatever. And that's how people are referred to. And so basically this random woman hires these two video game people to try to find out more information about something that she thinks is a little suspect. And then things unfold. It's very, very smart. It's very anti-capitalist. It's gritty. It's brutal. It's fast-paced. It is so fun, but also awful. The perspective we gain from our main character and the emotions that she goes through and what she feels and how she navigates the world and the difficulty that she runs into, it's heart-wrenching. And the way that this book explores technology, innovation, corporate and government control, it's phenomenal, and I need more people to read it because I really enjoyed it. I read it for a sci-fi reading vlog towards the end of last year, and I need to see more hype about it. It was nominated as one of the best sci-fi books published in 2021, I'm pretty sure, on Goodreads, but not enough people have read it. So go read it. The next book I want to talk about is a literary short story collection called Heads of the Colored People by Nafissa Spires Thompson. This book is obviously a collection of short stories that follow a bunch of different characters in a bunch of different situations. There is also, the lighting is going to be very weird and shifty in this video because clouds. Anyway, essentially because we're following all these different people in different stages of their lives and the way that they navigate racial identity and gender identity and their place in life. I read this quite a few years ago at this point, and I need to revisit it, but I remember when I read it, it really got to me. It really emotionally touched me, and it sort of reminds me of Girl, Woman, Other by Bernardine Evaristo, which a lot of people love. I just think that this short story collection is really underrated, and we get to understand a lot of different people's psyches and traumas and how interpersonal relationships play out in these various scenarios. There's also one short story that is set in St. Louis, and it features this vegan restaurant that like everyone knows and goes to, and I remember seeing its mention and I was like, I've been there. Anyways, so that's sort of a short description of a short story collection, but I highly recommend you check it out if you like short story collections, if you like literary fiction. This will definitely work for you, I think. It kind of reminds me of what people like in like Milk, Blood, Heat, or even The Secret Lives of Church Lady, somewhat. Like that type of millennial Black women's writing. This is very much a book of that genre, and it's excellent. The next book I want to talk about is a YA sapphic fantasy called Girls Made of Snow and Glass by Melissa Basherdoost. This book is so good. It has this icy, snowy landscape and vibe to it. It features complex father-daughter relationships, complex stepmother and daughter relationships, and it's phenomenal. We are following these two women in alternating perspectives. One is the stepmother, and one is the princess. And the stepmother is the queen. Basically, in alternating chapters, we get their alternating perspectives. And the stepmother queen has a father who is a sorceress, essentially, or a sorcerer, I guess, and he has sort of manipulated her throughout his life, and we follow her as she ascends to the throne and sort of marries the grieving king whose first wife had died, and, you know, rises to power, but she's not a like power grabbing sort of like evil villainess woman in the way that a lot of stepmothers are characterized in like fairy tales. She is just like a traumatized girl trying to escape the magical and emotional grasps of her father. The alternating chapters are this princess, the daughter of the king, who did not really have a relationship with her mother who died because she died, I think, like giving birth to her or something like that. And this daughter ends up getting entangled in a lot of relationship and political drama that has to do with magic. And she ends up having this sort of relationship or tense relationship that has to do a lot with political intrigue and stuff with this girl who is the surgeon or doctor's assistant in the castle. I really enjoyed this book. It was a really beautiful reconception or reimagining of the fairy tale princess, stepmother, castle, ice queen sort of narrative, and of course it's gay. Beautiful, moving, and fast-paced because it's a YA fantasy, and I really enjoyed it. It's very grim and dark and has really, really like snowy, icy, a snow day, and there's a storm and it's dark out kind of vibes, you know? My fourth recommendation is a adult literary fiction magical realism book, horror-ish, called The Changeling by Victor Laval. This was one of the first books I read in 2021, and I really enjoyed it. It follows this couple in New York City who have a child, and then strange shit starts happening. It's very much about New York and gentrification and racial tension, police violence, but also parent-child relationships, spousal relationships, marriages, generational trauma, magic, darkness. It feels very grounded in a reality in a lot of ways, with technological elements and then of course the actual landscape of New York City, but in other ways there's this horror bent and this terror of motherhood, because essentially towards the beginning of the book, our main character, who is the father and the dad and the man in this couple, his wife like ties him to like a chair in their kitchen, and then she like brutally murders their child in front of him, and then she disappears, and he ends up getting these like coded messages because he's a bookseller or a book collector, and it's a really complex weaving narrative that feels still straightforward in some ways, and I really liked it. And I think that if that sounds interesting to you, if you like that sort of strangeness in your novels, you should definitely pick this book up. So yeah, those are all 5-star book recommendations, a lot of sci-fi fantasy, some YA of them, some literary fiction type of things. So if that any of these books sound up your alley, or if you've read them, let me know your thoughts on them, or whether you want to read them in the comments down below. And like and subscribe if you haven't already and all that bullshit. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video, hopefully. Okay, bye.